I think there's like 2 or 3 new faces in the room, so thank you for bearing with the fact that in order to make it worthwhile to bring me all the way from Nova Scotia, we had to book me for lots of sessions, so you get to see me over and over. The main thing in terms of introduction for the few new faces in the room, just to say that the reason I do this work in terms of training for the farmers market sector is that I was a long-time vendor. For 18 years, I ran a business in the farmers market sector, but I also was a manager of a market for 6 years in Nova Scotia. And during most of that time, I was running training. So what we did was we used my market as a bit of a testing ground for a lot of ideas and projects that we I was gleaning best practices and ideas from farmers markets all over North America and trying to see what things really worked when you took them out of some of these big, giant markets in Washington and Seattle, and you took them into smaller communities and tried to do them. So some of what I have learned, we learned because it worked really well, and some of what we learned because it didn't work well at all. And the other thing I'll make a note of right at the beginning is that in your descriptions, it says marketing your farmer's market, and then the workshop description is all about branding. And that's just an error. The branding workshop isn't happening. It was one of the possible workshops. So I'm sorry if you're here thinking this is a workshop on branding. Marketing is a little bit about branding, but this is a marketing, how to market your farmer's market workshop. So I'm just going to start, and I'm going to... Okay, yeah, I'll give everybody a chance who wants to leave. Come on! I'm going to work through some slides and some information, and then we're going to have a chance to work at our tables a little bit to see what some of this could mean for your markets. I'm coming from the perspective that whether you are structured as a business, which a few of you might be, but most of you are nonprofits or even for-profit co-ops, the shift is to make sure you're thinking of your market as a business, not as a charitable organization. And some of the language we've traditionally used in the organic agriculture, in the local food movement, certainly in the farmers market sector, is the language about please support us. Yes, help us, right? Those come out of the nonprofit world, but farmers markets are much more successful when they're operating with business principles. Not only does it make you more financially stable, because suddenly you're looking at revenue streams beyond just your farmers market vendor stall fees, but you're offering service. It's a very different mindset. How can we continually be offering service? And remember, as markets, our number one customers aren't the community. Our number one customers are who? The vendors, right. And operating with a business mindset simply gets you professionalizing your market, whether that means how do you organize your board, how do you hire, retain, train staff, how do you structure events for your community, and how do you structure events for vendors? So it's also important when we're talking about marketing to remember that most of what people believe, they believe because they perceive it to be true. But there's that great saying that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And so anybody could say any of these things is true. It's true that organics is too expensive. It's true that beets taste awful. But of course, those are just perceptions that people have, right? Because you could believe that and you could believe the exact opposite. Science can prove a few things, like the world is round, but a lot of what we believe simply based on perception. So then one of the greatest mistakes that we make in marketing people tell you this is a fatal marketing flaw, is to be trying to change perception. What you believe is wrong and what I believe is right. It's not a very engaging way to market to people. So we want to not be focusing on changing perception. Good marketing is about what are you, somebody said yesterday, on Friday, we did a board governance workshop, and because we were together for 3 hours, we generated a list of commitments that we would make in terms of working together for those 3 hours. And one of the people mentioned that we wanted this room to be full of positivity, because people can tend to the positive or they can tend to the negative. And so this idea of changing perception is one that ends up driving a lot of negative marketing. And what we want to do is be striving towards results, benefits, values. This is positive messaging. Marketing is very much about stories and finding the values that the people who are our ideal customers would find appealing. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute with a flip chart that I have. So how many of you are familiar with Simon Sinek's Start With Why? Great. I've been very inspired by his work, and we've done some work in Nova Scotia farmers markets based on his work that's been really successful in terms of thinking about marketing for farmers markets differently, running some different campaigns, and starting to see that they have really positive results for us. So his whole idea is that social movements, philosophies, innovations, new technologies, whatever they are, they follow a bell curve, a predictable pattern. He calls it the law of diffusion of innovations. And essentially, there are always, for whatever the philosophy is, the technology is, there are people in the population who will quickly embrace it. Those are called our innovators and our early adopters. It takes those people convincing the rest of the population before you get widespread support for social movements. So you know how there's these, it's called the tipping point. Think about anti-smoking in Canada. It picked along and it picked along and picked along, and then suddenly there was a great shift in the population around those issues. So health is a pretty good example. But he uses the example in his book very much about civil rights and other kinds of movements that start and they slowly pick up speed, and then suddenly it feels like they roll. So if farmers markets start emulating this pattern, it does change the way that we think about marketing. So here's that bell curve that I was saying. You have your about 2.5% of a population are called innovators. I've put it here because it was hard to read. Another 13.5 or so are your early adopters, representing about 15 to 18% of the population. Now, then there's the early majority, the late majority, the laggards are on the end. Those are the people that if the only reason they use push button phones is because you can't buy a rotary phone anymore, but they'd rather still use a rotary phone. And what's important to remember is every one of us is different along this spectrum depending on what it is. So for example, technology is a good example. I'm probably somewhere in here. I'm definitely not an early adopter. It takes a number of people in my circle to tell me that this kind of software or technology is working and working well. I'll pick it up. But I'm not the person who stands in line for 6 hours to get the newest iPhone. Never. But I'm right up here. If you have like a new food product, some crazy horseradish with thyme concoction, I'll be the first, I'll be proud to say I bought that first. So none of us are on this spectrum all the time in the same place. We're somewhere along the spectrum depending on what is this idea, what is this product. So the other important part to know about the tipping point is that these people need these people to endorse a product or an idea before they take it on. So me with the technology. These people never do. If you are Walmart, Apple, Harley Davidson, some of these huge corporations, you can take your marketing money and you can go, and you can market to everybody on the spectrum. But for small organizations, nonprofits, movements that are based in values, we don't have those kinds of marketing budgets. And so the idea, I feel like some of those people can't see it, is that this is where we spend our advertising energy. Because these people need to tell these people that farmers markets are great before they come. We can try to convert and convince these people, but it's something like it takes 84 cents on the dollar to mass market to people here. It takes 15 cents on the dollar to market to these people. So some of the implications of this is that we've spent a lot of time trying to convince people in the farmers market sector who are all along the local food spectrum that they should be at farmers markets. But with limited budgets and limited reach, what we need to be doing is digging into our community and finding who are the people who believe in the values that underlie farmers markets, and we need to do a better job of reaching out to them. And then we need to expand some of our bring a friend, how can you help us promote farmers markets? Because it's their relationships with these early majority that start tipping the tipping point. So before we move on, are there questions about this model and this idea? We have a Saturday farmers market in our community. How we do it, maybe we have events, maybe we have a children's program, maybe we have live music. Those are kind of the specifics about how we do this thing. But this is the most important, crucial part, which is why do we do it in the first place? And so one of the examples that he offers in the book that I've used is that Apple Computer could say to somebody, we make computers. They have a certain amount of, so that's the what, we make computers. They have a certain amount of hard drive and gigabytes and thinness and weight. And then that's typically when we say, you know, do you want to buy one? That's the offer to the marketplace. His ideas start with why. So Steve Jobs was a great example of this. He said, we believe in challenging the status quo and changing access for people to technology. We do that by, so he starts with this, and then we do that by providing laptops and computers that have these certain features. Would you like to buy one? So the messaging comes from why instead of from what. So when we do longer marketing workshops, we have people sit in groups and start articulating, why does your market exist in your community? And we won't have time to do that, but this is something you as staff and board should be doing. Those, you all somewhere embedded in your policies and procedures, sometimes in your bylaws, there are hints as to those why. And certainly you, as the people in this room, I know this, we care so passionately about the farmers market sector. So we can articulate our personal why very clearly. And then we can wrap that into the why that our markets exist. And so back to the question, the expression of some of those values is what we share in common with these people. So some of it's about social responsibility. Some of it is about providing local food for our community. Some of it is about downtown revitalization. But what we do in our marketing is we focus on the events and the time of day and come have fun and we have free coffee. We forget that those are just generic marketing messages, that these people who will really help push our movement care about why we're doing what we're doing. And we're afraid in marketing and promotions to get into the idea of why. But the most successful companies and those social movements, civil rights, Martin Luther King Jr. didn't stand up and say, I have a plan. He said, I have a dream. It was about the values of civil rights and why it mattered to people in America. It wasn't the steps that you take to find emancipation for people. So this is how some of the understanding of this theory impacts how smart nonprofits and social innovation businesses can do things differently. Because we look to advertising, we look to big companies, and we just think we can replicate what they do. But they're spending money marketing to everybody, and we need to spend more focus with why language, understanding our why, communicating our why, and getting these people to move us to the tipping point. Because we're not at 15 to 18%. We live in these bubbles, these worlds of people and communities involved with our lives and our farmers markets. We think this is the world. And, you know, all it does is to go travel to a conference or to a place that isn't about farmers markets, and you suddenly think, whoa, I live in such a funny little bubble. Even flying on planes, you know, just the way they eat and give food and stuff in an industrial setting like the travel or airline industry. It's a constant reminder that we're still here. I think we're maybe at 5% of the population. Is it 3%? 5% of the population is actively engaged shopping at farmers markets. So we have a long way to go to hit the tipping point. So the first thing that this can teach us is that we need to move away from that helping, supporting, we are asking you to come help us kind of language. And we really need to step into how do we offer service and how do we offer benefits to you as a community? This comes back to a more business thinking model, and it certainly speaks to this issue of start with why. So we've spent a lot of time, there's a core group of market managers who work with farmers markets of Nova Scotia to try to create some provincial marketing campaigns so that every small market isn't trying to create and craft its own marketing messages. And so one of the things we realized is that people have done exactly what we said. We're struggling with, we've done many surveys. We do rapid market assessments in our province regularly and have the Department of Agriculture help us do the survey analysis of that. And people don't spend much money at farmers markets. We all spend probably $100, $150 a week easily. But what it shows time and time again in our province anyway is that people are spending much less than we like and would think. There's a core group of people who come to markets and spend around $10. And Farmers Markets Canada did a similar survey like in 2003. It has that $3.18 billion of economic impact from the farmers market sector in Canada back then. But even if you look at some of the details about what per person shopping, the amount is ridiculously low. So we've been asking why? Why aren't people spending more money and actually buying their basics week after week at farmers markets? And we started thinking, you know what we've said is come support us. And so people do come. People come and they hang out and they drink coffee, they take part in events. We haven't asked them to come shop, come spend your grocery money with us. So we realized they're doing what we've asked them to do, but have we asked them what we really want them to do? So that's another part of this marketing piece, is figuring out what is the ask. I think people are responding. People come to farmers markets, but they don't all come every week, and they don't all shop as regularly as we like, or even events. Events is an example of a tool that's become very popular in farmers markets, simply running events. But I think actually in this PowerPoint, we'll get to events. I want people to be rethinking events so that they have very specific results associated with their events. And what happens is events generate lots of new interest from people. But people who come to events, if you do follow-up surveys, they're not the people who easily become your regulars. that you get swells and swells, but those swells are new people each time. We're not retaining people very well who come to events as their entrance way to farmers markets. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more. So in your minds, if I was to say, so if we step back from the farmers market sector for a minute and we say support school gardens. Some of them are community gardens, some of them are just school. Please support our children's school garden. What does that feel like it's asking? Right?
Basically to not oppose.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Don't go there and rip the garden apart.
Right.
That's what I think.
Okay.
Right? That's supporting. I'm
Yeah.
not getting in their way.
Right.
Right.
Right. Or volunteering, helping somehow. Right. It doesn't say become an integral part of it. Learn about why we're in existence and help build it. So what are some of the things that we really want to be saying? I gave an example in Nova Scotia. We're looking at how do we do marketing campaigns that are really about shopping at farmers markets and understanding that some chunk of your core grocery spending could be done at farmers markets, because we're doing a great job bringing a range of products to farmers markets these days. I think more could be done, but even compared to 10 years ago, markets are, there's so many amazing value-added food products and things at markets now. And so this is an example of every market, every manager will have some differences in terms of what they want to be saying. There's some general ones, and then there's some specific ones for your community. But the point is to figure out, instead of just saying, come support us, come participate in our events, to get much more clear about what we really want, and then figure out what are the values and benefits underlying those behaviors that we can build our marketing around. There are so many values underlying why we do what we do and why farmers markets are important. But if you follow mass media and how big corporations market themselves, they don't use the language of values. And this, and some of the research we've done and some of the programs we've put in place shows that that is very effective. And then what you do is you take those people who share your values and find you and use them to help spread the word. So I wanted to just share a couple of results from surveys that we've done at the Wolfville and Kentville Farmers Market. The first survey was when this, it was a year-round market. We were outside part of the year and then inside in a different location for the winter months. And we were moving into a full-time ACOA, so that's provincial and federally funded building. We did a lot of survey work. So these surveys were fairly high. Several hundred people responded to them. And one of the questions was, what are your top 3 reasons for shopping at the farmers market? And we listed 12 options. And look at that, 86% to buy fresh local food and 67% in their top 3 was to support the farmers market movement, which is phenomenal. We thought we'd get more things, more specifics, like to have breakfast in our community, or because of the suite of events that are run, or other things, but they weren't up in the top. The top one was just to support the farmers market movement. And so then in the market that I managed, we did customer year-end surveys every year. We actually incentivized that. We gave people $2 in market money for the completion and handing in of a survey. Works tremendously well. You get like 90 to 95% of people who you give a survey to will fill it in for $2 in market money. It's a great way to spend some of your advertising money because all the money goes right back to your vendors. Anyway, time and time again, in this survey, we give them 10 reasons for shopping. I couldn't remember the percentages when I was creating this slide, but the first one is always to purchase local food. The second, to purchase other locally produced goods. The third, to support the farmers market movement. And the fourth, to support the growth of community activities in this particular town. So all of the other things that we thought were maybe motivating people in terms of having a convenient place to spend their lunch hour, because this is a Wednesday 10 to 2 market. People eat tons of food at that market. And so we thought that was probably one of the things driving people to the market, but it isn't. It's some of those value-based, we want to be part of, we love the idea of what you're doing. So it lends itself to this why-based, value-based marketing. So I want to just give you maybe 10 minutes at your tables at this point to talk about these 3 questions. How do we reach? If we subscribe to this, you're welcome not to, but I think it's very worthwhile to be starting to think this way. How do we reach those people in our communities? Because there's many people who share our values around environmental sustainability, health, keeping money in local economies, supporting local producers, but they still don't come to the farmers market, or they don't come as often as they could. What values would we share with them? And then how do we spend our advertising dollars more effectively by asking those people essentially to market to the rest of the bell curve? We don't say to market, we ask them to bring their friends, bring people to market. If we are more strategically using our advertising dollars to have these people help us advertise to this group, it's a powerful way to get new people who already have somebody encouraging them that this is a good idea. So in that case, how can we do some of that? So let's spend 10 minutes thinking about those questions, and then here are some of the answers you come up with. How about pictures of food and produce with a customer, not with a vendor, but with a customer? Those can be really great.
Yeah.
2 customers, smiley.
Yeah, right.
That's what we
Yeah, we were thinking.
And you don't have very many people who take part in those contests, but many people watch it. And that's the key. Yeah. What about this group up here? Just a few other ideas in terms of marketing. One of them is that we have subscribed to the idea at some of the successful markets in Nova Scotia that incentivizing behavior is worth trying out, and we have found incentives truly work. We've done giving out free market money, free coffee cards, discount loyalty cards, money to fill in surveys, chances to win or put your names in draws. These have been very effective from very small markets with 12 vendors up to some of the big city markets that have upwards of 100 vendors. One of the things that we have, so here's, in terms of that market money thing, people get nervous about printing market money. If you budget to create market money and use 20% redemption as the figure, you'll never get more than 20%. So,
Say that again.
so let's say you decide you have $1,000 to, these are great if your market closes and then reopens and you need a bunch of people to show up for the first couple of weeks. Or for markets that move into an indoor location or a different location in the off-season. So in the off-season, you go to a local home show or a trade show, some way you get into the hands of people, coupons, $5, redeemable at the market for the first 2 weeks. Small incentives don't really work. You need to make those, like $5 gets people to come, $1, $2 in this economy, it doesn't move behavior. So if you have $1,000 to spend, maybe you have $500 to spend, maybe you have $200 to spend. Multiply that times 5 and print that many coupons, because you'll never have more than 20% come back. Just to be clear, that 20% redemption rate is when you're just generally in the community handing out. These more targeted campaigns can certainly have higher redemption rates. I mean, there's strengths and weaknesses to that kind of thing too, in the sense that it appeals to a certain, it's the early people will come. And people at 10 o'clock in the morning, if your market starts at 8:30, they'll be like, those will already have been spent, so it won't incentivize me. So you just play around with these incentives. But the point is that they drive behavior, but remember, they don't maintain behavior. And what I say to vendors and to market managers both is it's easy to get somebody to come to your market, or it's easy to get somebody to come to your business. But do they come back? And I don't think we're doing nearly a good enough job giving people a great first experience. Markets are busy, chaotic. They're intuitive once you've been there for a while, but it can be very hard to find your way around a new market. And there's certainly room at markets to have a volunteer or a day of staff person whose job is to be walking around asking people, are you new to the market? Doing market tours, giving people brochures, or just simply welcoming people, free coffee card, whatever those things are. I think it's the same. At vendor training programs, I say, you need to stop blaming market managers and asking them to constantly be bringing more and more people to the market. You could grow your business by 20% just by increasing your business skills and selling more to people who are already there. There's enough people at farmers markets for you to grow to your business. And I also think there's enough people, new people coming to your market just by virtue of the market being there. But how focused are we on making sure people have a great experience? Because the chaotic, fun-loving nature of farmers markets isn't comfortable when you're an outsider. And markets are very much a sense of community. And when you feel like you're not part of it, it isn't as easy as it is for the people in this room to be in that community. So advertising works, some forms of advertising. This is both from, I would say the results of this are from Farmers Market Coalition has their e-listserv for market managers. If y'all aren't on that, you should be. That's FMC, Farmers Market Coalition. It is in the States, but the e-listserv is for people, market managers around North America, and you can just be part of the listserv. People post questions and other people answer them, and it's from all around North America. It's fantastic.
Can you say that once more?
So FMC is Farmers Markets Coalition. If you go on their homepage, it's called their listserv. That's what you want to sign up for. It's free, but FMC is doing incredible work, and I encourage every market to join. It's not very much money, and it is the value you'll get just from the listserv pays for that, but it is free. Yeah, they have some great resources. Oh my gosh. So from that research and just being the person who's on the ground always looking for this information, radio advertising is successful because who listens to local radios, local people? So are community newspapers and signage. Those are your top three. I mean, right. You have to be careful with signage and work with your municipalities, but flyers and posters, we kind of come from every community supper and every event in our community creates a poster, so we think we should be doing it too. Time and time again, when you do surveys asking customers how they found out about you, postering isn't up there. And we do spend money paying graphic designers and stuff to do posters, so we need to be thinking about that. Facebook is mixed. Facebook builds community and excitement, loyalty amongst existing followers. Facebook, if you're always pushing come to market, new people won't engage. But our innovators and early adopters are definitely on Facebook, and so just to keep them engaged and feeling excited, it's worth it. Make sure you find somebody who's dynamic to do that. Some of this can work against you if you have the wrong people on TV or the wrong people on radio. Or even the wrong people being interviewed. You have the radio station, they bring their cruiser. Events, we have used events in the farmers market sector to bring new people to the market. And they can be tremendously successful for that. But our events should never be a source of deficit out of our budgets. They should be used to build a revenue stream through developing partnerships and sponsorships mostly. When we do market manager training, we spend a lot of time on this. How do we create a suite of events, all of which have the potential to bring in income? So you run your event and it's fundraising at the same time. Because most of you are spending your money to do events, and you need to be creating money by doing events. They also can serve existing customers really well. So it's not enough. I say you are better off to do 2 events in a season that are fundraisers at the same time and build partnerships, and that have ways of taking the new people who come and converting them into regular shoppers, than you are to be running 3, 4, 5 events just to make it seem like we're having fun at the market. That isn't business thinking. We don't have enough money to pay our managers, to hire people to professionally do graphics and stuff, and the way to change that is to be thinking about doing more fundraising for your market, and this comes back to events as fundraisers. Service from, okay, so this, I'm going way out on a limb here. Some of you will definitely resist this, and some of your policies won't allow for this. But in small markets, this can be very helpful. Many markets now have nonprofit booths that they offer community organizations free space at farmers markets. What about expanding the box and thinking about selling table space to people in our communities who have complementary businesses? And so here's some examples, whether you have teenagers who are babysitters up to people who have professional landscaping companies who come as business booth users at your farmers market. This won't fit for all of your farmers market models, but for a lot of our smaller sector markets, this business booth idea has been very helpful. It brings in revenue. It helps fill space. It helps fill space without adding more of existing products. And some of these people have very good business skills because they're business owners with brick and mortar businesses. They know about customer service. So there's no reason to also not be thinking, how can we possibly think of having complementary businesses part of our farmers market sector? 10, 15, 20% of table space potentially. And of course, there's a marketing component to this because they bring a whole other potential group of people to markets. Yeah, knife sharpeners, I've heard at a few markets, yeah. So I'm just encouraging you, if that fits, to spend some time at a board level or in a vendorship committee meeting level, thinking about whether that's worth pursuing. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is this idea out there called relationship marketing. And relationship marketing is basically networking. This is the idea of having email lists with people that you're constantly communicating with. Some markets are doing great. They have hundreds of people on their MailChimp or constant contact lists. Other markets aren't doing that. Building those relationships outside of market pays dividends time and time again. There's concepts in business. 10% of your market at any given time is willing to buy higher end items. Well, you need to have that target market sitting there, and that demographic changes all the time. So sometimes if you have big events and special things happening, you don't get as much engagement as if you have people who you have been priming in the meanwhile, who are reading your newsletters that come with pictures of customers, pictures of flowers and vegetables at your market. They just, they build that sense of familiarity, relationship with your market. I say consider segmented lists. I think you can have lists for your community members, but community partners and vendors can even be on separate lists and be getting separate kinds of correspondence from you. And this can be a great thing to outsource. This whole handle our newsletter campaigning. You can hire somebody $50 a month, $200 a month, depending on how much work they do. Always incentivize it. So if you have, those are short form ballots. These are longer form ballots where people actually tick off areas of interest. You can, and when my market started, we went from 0 people on the email list to 700 people on the email list in a season by having a monthly draw. We offered a canvas bag, a t-shirt, $20 in market money. If you're new to the market, please sign up for our email list. Now, 2 and 3 years later, it wasn't working for us. Why? Because many of the people who were entering were the same people. So at the beginning, we would have 50, 100 new people every week signing up. 3 years in, we were capturing like only 10 or 12 new people. So we stopped the program. We still offer it, but we don't incentivize it in the same way. But that's how you build those relationship marketing things. And then regional market maps, farmers market tours, destination restaurants. So let's say you had 6 or 7 markets in a local region. Each donate $200. And you create a tour and a map. Sorry. You can offer ad space to vendors. You can generate a fairly nice budget and put together this sort of destination. Here, you go to these 3 markets over these 3 days. Here's the bed and breakfast to stay in. Here's the restaurant to eat in the evening. And I guess I need to let you go. There we go. There's the question at the end. So, thank you very much. Thank you.